Let's start. We are going to start this session, building resilient utilities assets for congested cities and climate resilience. So we have Mr. Ravi Seethapathy, who is advisor ISGF and executive chairman Biosirus. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Gajanan Kale, CEO PT&D. Welcome, sir. We have Amit Tripathi from CDRI, Advisor Power. Welcome, Amit. We have Trulochan Panda. He could make it. I think he could not make it. We have Abel, Tella, Director General, Association of Power Utilities, Africa. Welcome, Abel. We have Vijayan SR. He is Principal Technical Consultant, Hitachi Energy. Welcome, Vijayan. We have R.R. Mehta, former CEO, Reliance Infrastructure. Welcome, sir. We have Ismael Adam from Mauritius. Welcome, Ismael. I think now over to Ravi, sir. You can start the session. Mr. Prasad is missing this session. Unfortunately, he could not make it. Okay. So you have to play.
I didn't want to be offside in soccer when the chairman is still to come and I start playing.
You have to play both the roles.
I'll get a yellow card. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. We are actually on the journey to discuss it just so that it doesn't die off with one session. And we repeated that in the DUM, also the utility meet for the last 2 sessions. And this time we also have CDRI, which is the apex body here for it to represent. And it's something to be taken seriously because what used to happen every 20 years, 30 years is happening almost every year. North America, we are seeing annual events, floods, insurances being canceled for ordinary people. And we are having wildfires that are coming on almost every year. So the question is, where is the disaster resilience mechanism for a critical infrastructure like the power sector? And are we doing something about it? What will be the new standards? What will be the new methodology? What will be the new power equipment that will likely to come? And all that is something to be thought out, just like we thought out in the 1950s as to what the equipment will be for the growth of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We need to start thinking along those lines now so that we know what to do if we are faced with it, or what can we be pushed out by methodologies, by practices, by smarts, by control systems, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very important. I know I've also had discussions with the World Bank, and anybody from the World Bank, you may have to excuse me a little. This 1.5 degree, 2 degree discussions, I think we've had 30 years of it. Our chairman was Maurice Strong, the 1992 Rio Summit. I was a little young man in his office as a kind of a young engineer. And so from 1992, I've been trying to follow the agenda as to what's happened in the climate change discussions. For 10 years, we went with the IPCC to come up with the result. For 10 years following that till 2005-07, we almost validated the IPCC report. For another 14 years, we were discussing whether 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees. And in the last 5 years, we are faced with the consequences without even accepting whether it's 1.5 or 2 degrees. So the question is here and now. People are fed up. There are policymakers at the municipal level who are being told to do certain things. San Antonio, Texas, Las Vegas, Florida. They're all being told, you either do something for us or, we have to vote you out. So it's becoming a political game as well for the utilities to do something. Yesterday's answer of I'm getting to it, it doesn't go with it anymore. We'll have to be proactive as to what we try to solve. So with that, what I will do is I will have, in this process today, we have one themed presentation. Mr. Kale will be presenting his views. And then Mr. Tripathi, I don't know if you're going to take the podium or you're going to speak from the chair. It's up to you. Okay, you can do that. And then we will ask to have remarks from the rest of the panelists here and hopefully have a conversation. But I'm going to leave you with 2 thoughts. One is, what can we do practical here and now for the next 5 years? What do you think can be done in the next 5 years without breaking the bank? And what do you think in the long run has to be done regardless of whether we break the bank or not? because it's a survival issue. And so there are just thoughts that come up, and then we will, as we go along, we'll talk about it. So, Mr. Kale, the floor is yours.
As you know, Tata Power is working in different cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Ajmer, and we are also working in a state like Odisha. So this topic is quite relevant from like Tata Power perspective, as well as the whatever the problems and challenges we are facing at different distribution companies of Tata Power. If you see, like, we'll scroll the slides. Is there anyone? So should I go there?
Go there if you want. Anand, he wants to present the slides. आप जाइए उधर जाके नहीं
Yeah, यहाँ से भी हो जाएगा ना. Yeah, yeah. So it's working. It's not working, I think. Oh, I think.
So point towards that.
Yeah, yeah. So shall I go there, or is it okay with? No? Yeah, yeah. So if you see, like, the major climate changes or the problems we are facing is extreme weather conditions like cyclone and the floods in Odisha. So as it is a coastal state, Odisha, you know, that in Odisha, every year we are facing with the cyclone and flooding. Because in coastal area, we have 4 distribution companies in the coastal areas, like Tata Power Central Distribution, Odisha Distribution Limited, Western Odisha, Northern Odisha, and Southern Odisha Distribution Limited. So all these 4 companies are facing the heat of these storms, cyclones, and floods, and it is damaging the entire network of the distribution company when any cyclone or floods are coming. At the same time, if you see the another extreme condition of the temperature in Delhi, last year we have already experienced the highest temperature of more than 50 degrees Celsius in Delhi, and that time again it is like a big stress on the distribution utility, as well as the equipment, different equipments which got overloaded beyond their capacity. Some of the conductors got derated and all. So if you see that way, these are the major issues we are facing, like the extreme weather conditions in Delhi, Mumbai, like areas where even in Mumbai, you know, this rainy season is like very heavy rainy season is there. Anytime you will get the rain there in Mumbai. All the people are carrying umbrellas, and they are always carrying the umbrellas with them. So that way, that problems are there. So if you see this chart, I don't know whether it is visible or not, but there are a few of the very big disasters happened in Odisha. In 1999, extreme super cyclone that strikes the Odisha with a wind speed of more than 260 to 270 kilometer per hour. So that was the bad experience Odisha has. The entire Odisha network was down to ground, and the entire Odisha was affected with this super cyclone in 1999. Subsequently, again they faced the different cyclone in 2013. Hudud was there, Felin was there, Fani was there. In Fani, even all these cyclones were having a wind speed of more than 200 km per hour, and so that way the entire network was damaged. And when we took over this business of Odisha, we were aware about these problems and challenge, that this challenge will definitely be there, and we should look for some solution for this major issue. Even for the flooding part also, there are 9 major rivers and their tributaries and distributaries are there, and these rivers are always flooded during the rainy seasons, and this is causing a lot of even a lot of our electrical network is getting flushed away during this rainy season. So that was the another challenge we were facing in Odisha. Just we are showing the picture here in Delhi. Sorry?
No,
yeah. So if you see this picture in Delhi, so this is the highest water level we have in Delhi. Like in 2023, this water level was as high as 208 meters, and that was beyond the high flood level mark of Delhi. So there are like warning level, danger level and high flood level. So it was beyond the high flood level mark of Delhi, and the if you see, almost half of the Delhi was underwater during that period. We have captured few of the photographs, if you can see, this was the like highest flood which we have experienced in the last 12 years. So this kind of flood was not we have experienced so far in Delhi. So the entire network was like below water, and it was very difficult to maintain the supply in a national capital like Delhi. So what we have done after facing this experience, we have actually mapped the entire this flooded network on the GIS. So more than 1200 distribution transformer, vulnerable distribution transformer, including our HVDS system, and so everything we have mapped on GIS, so that whenever next time we'll have any kind of such situation, so at least we will have preparation for that. So once we have mapped this, all these over flooded equipments and the assets on GIS, we have started doing the different like prioritizations and working on it, like raising of the height of the substations, and then providing the like even the flood was so high, like people were not able to reach to the site. So now that was the learning for us. We should provide some like tools, tackles and PPEs and equipment, so that at least they should be able to reach that site. So even boats were required to reach the particular location. So that way we have start our preparations. We have start raising the plinth of the substations. We have started raising the like platform of the substations. We have asked the customers to raise their like structure if any in that particular area. So that way we have done a lot of preparations for even the next, even if any next flood comes in Delhi, there will be a no outages or the interruptions in northwest part of Delhi. So that way we have done the preparation in a phased manner. In Odisha, we have designed one a particular pole, so that will be useful for the other coastal area states and utilities. This pole, if you see that the conventional RCC pole, it was having like a flat surface, and the maximum pressure was on the like major axis. And so we have changed this design of pole with a spun pole. So in spun pole, this pressure has dispersed to 2/3 of the actual pressure on, because this is a round surface. So it will not be at the pressure. So that way it has improved that even we have tested this spun pole. We have designed this spun pole in 2022, and when in October 24 this Dana cyclone came. So that time these poles, they have withstood the pressures of like more than 180 or 200 km/h pressure. So that way it was practically these poles are successful, and we have actually rolled out these poles and implemented in different coastal part of the Odisha rather. On the same pattern, we have also designed another pole, that is a lacing pole, rebar lacing pole for 11 kV and 33 kV network. So this is again like a cost-effective solution we have designed for 11 kV and 33 kV ST network. This is a very low-cost pole, and it can bear pressure up to 300 km/h. So that way, this design is having a 300. And in this design, we have used some like MS rod welded connection inside the like box type of design. And we are also using these prefabricated stuff foundations for installing these poles, so that if in case any cyclone occurs, so we can use the prefab foundations. We can put that foundations. That foundation is having a like bolted arrangement, so these poles can be erected within like few hours. So that kind of arrangement we have like design in Odisha, so that if now this cyclone, even in Dana cyclone, this poles, you can see these poles if you are going to Puri-Konark highway, that you calling it Marine Drive highway. So on that Marine Drive, you can see the entire pole we have erected on that stretch. And at the same time, if you see the like cross arm, so in cross arm we have designed, developed one new cost-effective composite insulated cross arm. So this design is having like good insulated spaces there, and it is quite effective in cyclone like scenarios. For disaster preparedness, we have also taken few of the initiatives in Odisha, like if we are getting advance information whenever any cyclone is coming in the state. So the entire state is preparing, doing the lot of preparations whenever such kind of like disaster is happening in this state. So we are also preparing this thing, like we have also procured a number of DG sets, so that at least we are keeping these DG sets in a backup for the emergency purposes, like if any emergency services are required to be continued, or for example hospitals are required to be continued. So that way we are keeping a lot of backup. At the same time, we are also prepared a number of mobile substations mounted on the truck and trolleys. So we have actually fabricated this number of mobile substations we are keeping at strategic locations, so that we can provide the immediate solutions if in case any DT fails or anything happens. So strategically we have like placed these mobile substations. We have also positioned the number of equipments like spares at the strategic location we have positioned. So whenever such thing happening, we are keeping a sufficient stock of material spares at the particular location, so that immediately that can be reached to the desired locations. Coming to the congested city part, in Mumbai, you know the Mumbai, the land is sold in not in square meter or square foot, they are in square inches they are selling the land in Mumbai like area. So that way it is very difficult to get any right of way or to like design the substation. So here we have designed one new substations, like you can install the transformer inside the vault below the ground level. So you can see here we have like this the figure below that, the picture below, that is the underground transformers or systems. It is, even if it is fulfilled with the water, so entire the vault is filled with water, that transformer will work. So that kind of design we have developed with the manufacturer Mrs. Toshiba. So this kind of substations we have actually commissioned in Delhi and Mumbai. So where that space constraint is there. So that way in congested city we can have like this kind of underground substations. At the same time, in Delhi and Mumbai kind of scenario, we have this multi-storied single span, even 400 kV transformers we have actually kept on the platform. 400 kV transformers, where actually we are keeping on the plinth, but here on spun pole we have elevated one platform, and that platform we have kept that 400 kV transformers, and below RMUs and SCVs are there. So that this is a two levels kind of structure with a spun lever arrangement. So this is also like reducing my space from 24 square meter to like half, like 12 square meter. So in 12 square meter you can build up these substations of 400 kV kind of capacity. In Delhi itself, this photograph is from Delhi. So here in JJ cluster Juggi area, so one drain is there. So over that drain we have actually erected one platform, and on that platform we have actually commissioned one substation of 400 kV with RMUs and ACVs and LT switch gears. So practically there is no space or a right of way required from any land owning agency, and we have kept this platform on the drain itself. So it is even because in JJ clusters and Juggi Jopri type of area where congested slums are there, you don't have any space to erect these substations and all. So that way we have done this experiment, and it is successful. Virtually no space is required for such kind of installations. This is another innovative experiment we have done in Tata Power Delhi. This electric Shakti, so this is a microgrid we have installed here, and we have partners like NAD, Schneider's, Audit and JICO. So with this arrangement, what we have done, we have like 630 kV of transformers with battery storage of system, and this solar system is there. So this Xavier public school is there. So this Xavier public school, we have 3 solar systems, each of 50 kVA, 50 kVA, 75 kVA and 50 kVA. So that way more than 225 kVA, 200 kilowatt battery storage system is there. We have 630 kVA of transformer. So that way even islanding can be happen for the such like emergency kind of services. Even our LG house is also on the same transformers. Our Lieutenant Governor's house is on the same transformer. This JBS school is on the same transformer. One hospital is on the same transformer. So these big customers is having a like very like 100% reliability is there. Even if in the power fails through this battery storage, they are getting the reliable power supply. So we have done this experiment with this our partner, as I have already mentioned. So this is the happy students when photographs were captured, and this at Xavier Public School along with the iElectrics team. So these are the specification of the transformer, base of 200 kilowatt, 274 kWh, 630 kV transformer with online type changers, and 3 LV feeders. Almost 24 big customers we are facing through this arrangement, this microgrid operations, and this. So this islanding is also happening through this project, and currently we are also working on this peer-to-peer arrangement. So that platform also we are creating in TPDDL. So just finally, just I wanted to conclude that for any reliable supply, and in Odisha kind of scenario where the cyclones and disasters are coming, so there most reliable supply we can give through the underground network. So that is the most reliable way of giving the supply. But again, going for overhead to underground conversion is a very costly affair. So almost if you see the overhead infrastructure cost and the underground infrastructure cost, so it is almost 3 to 5 times than the overhead infrastructure cost. So that way we need to take call where we can go for the underground network, where we can have such resilient kind of infrastructure for the overhead system also. So we are trying to actually optimize these resources and the our available resources and the capex, and that way we are trying to give the reliable power supply in the congested cities like Delhi, Mumbai and Ajmer. At the same time, this disaster management at Odisha. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
There are a couple of seats up front for those of you who would like to come. If you want to be on camera, if you don't want to be on camera, be there. If you want to be on camera, you can come front. So before we get into a discussion, if there are any burning questions of Mr. Kale's presentation, this is the time.
First of all, Kale sir, thank you so much. I think we have been working in Odisha a lot. So we have been. Hello. Hello.
Is it on? Just
Hello. Hello.
they are giving the another.
So we have been working in Odisha from last 4 years, and we've seen a remarkable transformation of Odisha as a utility since Tata Power has joined the hands with Gridco. Unfortunately, Panda sir is not here right now, but he would have spoken more about it. But I will just take that liberty of talking, having been worked. So we did a lot of activity with Tata Power as one of the key stakeholders in Odisha, where in the last version of India Smart Utilities, where I had shared about, we did a comprehensive resilience risk planning for T&D infrastructure all across the coast of Odisha from 480 kilometers. And what we specifically did also looking at from 0 to 60 kilometers, because it was as per the Central Electricity Authority guidelines. Because after Fani, there was a task force which was created, and then a lot of recommendations flowed from that on how to build resilient power infrastructure with respect to the cyclone and flooding. So that's one. In terms of the question for you, sir, how you sort of face a regulatory challenge in order to address some of these issues, because of course there is certain cost associated to it, and going beyond the standards that is prescribed by CA or your general practice, how you navigate that that cycle in order to get the best optimal design and right investment done the places that we want. Because generally we keep on hearing this question that of course we'd like to make everything resilient, but it costs. And you have to put an extra effort through a lot of ways in order to address those things. So just your perspective on that. And
yeah, a very good question, Amit. Actually, this is really a pain area for any private utility to create such kind of resilient network, because you are not allowed to spend that that kind of like high value of the capital expenditure in the organization, because ultimately it is building up to the tariff part. So that way, regulators are not allowing you to actually spend much more on the resilient kind of creating the resilient kind of network. But at the same time, what we did in Odisha, actually we got a very good government support. Even the government of Odisha, they are keeping a lot of budget provisions for their, like in their state budget for facing such kind of disasters management. So they have very good budgetary arrangement they are making. And there is one special model in Odisha what we have experienced, which is not there in Delhi, Mumbai or Ajmer or in any other private discoms, that Odisha government, in case of such disasters, they are actually supporting the distribution company. They are creating the assets in name of government of Odisha. They are not creating that assets in name of the private distribution companies. So they are creating that assets in name of the government of Odisha. They are giving that right of use that assets to the distribution company. And whenever any capex, capital expenditures they have to contribute for the regular capital expenditure of the distribution company. So that time they are handing over these assets in terms of the kind to the distribution company. So in place of giving the cash or like the contribution of the capital expenditures in terms of the revenue or cash, so they are handing over this created asset in terms of kind to that distributions company. So that way that from the government book they are getting transferred to the private book. So that take out contributions and they are getting ROE obviously on that part subsequently. So that is one arrangement. At the same time, we are also doing the prioritization of the areas. So when underground system has to be developed, so first priority will be like Bhubaneswar because it is a state capital. It is in the coastal area and a lot of like important installations, public places are there and it is a capital place. So obviously we'll start this kind of capital place for the underground system of the network. And even unfortunately the central government schemes, they are not also providing any support to the private distribution company. So we have taken up this matter many times with the Ministry of Power and the through the ministers and through the power secretaries. I hope in time to come this problem will be resolved for the rest of the private distribution companies, because ultimately we are serving for the customers. Whatever the assets we are creating, it is the that is the property of the organizations and this is not the property of any utility. Subsequently, we are the license holder for 25 years. So these assets are created for any organizations or for the government. And if we are not getting the license renewed after 25 years, automatically these assets will get transferred to the government. So that way, Ministry of Power or government should think over it, and definitely to create a resilient network, government support is required. You cannot spend the capital expenditure from the utility point of view.
Thank you. One more? Yeah.
Just in terms of the capex, so what we did in Odisha, and we found out just in terms of the number for both priority 1, 2, 3, we prioritized the asset in terms of how important it is to do the interventions. And for all three priorities, the investment was close to US $3.2 billion. And if this has to translate into actual tariff, this would mean double the tariff, which is not possible. So of course, I think your suggestion that it has to be supported by government in one way, there should be a specific window, and that we have recommended to Ministry of Power as well, a specific window within RDSS scheme or RDSS type of scheme, revamped distribution sector scheme, where there should be a specific focus, especially to begin with coastal areas, 0 to 60 kilometers, and the high mountain areas, which subsequently sees a lot of flooding. Also a special effort on the heat side as well. Preparation of utilities for the heat, I think that we have seen that it faces a massive challenges. We have seen that Delhi doesn't face that much of a challenge because Tata and Reliance are doing a great job. But the moment you cross the border, you go to Gurgaon, I think you can see the difference into the quality and reliability of the power that is being supplied. So there is a need for actually investment in the heat also. It's a slow onset of an event. We don't care that much. It's only for the couple of months we say, of course, that could happen. But it plays havoc. Like it did play havoc last year in Gurgaon. Heat wave last year was just for generally it used to be just 7 to 10 days. That's the spell of heat wave. Last year it was close to 30 to 40 days. And that created a lot of havoc on the DT transformers. And it created a lot of, it opened a lot of Pandora box of how some of these utility assets are being managed. So asset management with respect to the extreme heat wave and the support from government in order to do it is necessary required. So that's, thanks.
Thank you.
So just to add to that, there are, or you want to speak when your turn comes to speak, or, yeah, I think just, Just on two issues here. One, Mr. Prasad is not here, but on the temperature side, there are two lacunas, and the last 3 sessions, and Mr. Mehta has also been talking about that, is the old BIS standards to which things have been procured are not to today's ambient temperatures. So the question is, you can do 2 things. You can either derate it and take it on the balance sheet, which nobody wants to do, or you can manage it for the number of days that you can manage it through very good controls and sensors and so on. So in the West, we tend to manage it through thermal management. So I have given talks saying, why now on your DMS, you will not have electrical characteristics. You will have thermal characteristics of substation, lines, feeders, to the extent that you need it. And you will manage it to that thermal characteristics. But I had 2 questions for you, Mr. Kale. 400 kVA today, India is officially growing at 9%. Delhi may be growing at 10, 12%. 3 years from now, it's 630 kVA. 3 years from then, it'll be 1 MVA. Will your structures stand that level of growth on the weight side of it? Have you factored that in?
Actually, whatever we are actually showing here, it is one structure, and we are not. We are actually keeping the safety margin of 1.35. So that way 630 can always be accommodated, but we are not preparing for any such kind of structure for 630, because 630 is like heavy load, and we are not going for such kind of elevated structure for 630. It is plinth mounted only. 630 or 1 MA is plinth mounted only. And based on the last year experience of heat wave, as Amit was also mentioning, we have done a lot of preparations, because every year this private discoms is, this part is good that whenever they are experiencing any kind of like in ordinary situation, so they are getting a lot of learning, and on that learning they are working. And even this year such kind of scenario happens, we have actually prepared ourselves for the 11-12% growth. Last year it was 11% growth. This year it was 12% growth, and this, through this smart metering infrastructures, we are able to actually monitor the proper loading of each and every transformer, proper loading of each and every feeders, because we have all the 11 kV feeders, distribution transformers are already metered. So through these smart metering infrastructures, actually we can always monitor these assets, and through these monitorings, even generally we are keeping the loading of distribution transformer to 60%. That way also power transformers, we are keeping one standby N-1 power transformer. So up to 33 kV level, 11 kV level, we have N-1 system is available. For LT, we don't have N-1. So that way we are keeping the loading of the transformer at a like very reasonable level of 60%. So that way, at least I can assure you that if you people are living in northwest part of Delhi, you will not get any interruptions in the upcoming summer.
So there is a heat map produced by CEA.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, I think every utility would have to test that equipment capability against that heat map provided by CEA. So I think for the first time globally, I think you have a government that has mandated an acceptance of today's temperature and have given a maximum temperature to, and so the question is, what is the state of your current assets vis-a-vis the new temperatures? So that has happened. So, but they have not, I have not seen a report of every utility saying good, bad, ugly, right? So we have not seen that. On the second one, maybe just a request to have your staff think about that 1 MVA 630, when you become pad mounted, how high will that pad be, etc., etc. Just some future. Because today, this morning, we had a session where somebody said Delhi is growing around 9 to 10% a year. So it is not very far away that you will have a 630 and a 1 MVA transformer.
Yeah, yeah. Even for 630, 1 MVA transformers, so if you are making the foundation, it requires almost 15 days to 1 month. So we have started using the prefabricated foundations for 630 MVA, 1 MVA. So that way, on the same day, we can keep the foundations, so we can keep the transformers, and one day we can have a like substations like kind of thing. So that way we are preparing, we are innovating the things in a different way.
Okay. Any other question, or Mr. Mehta, you had a question?
Hello. You hear me? Okay. I think to some extent utilities also did not implement the rights they had, if I may say so. And I'll explain why I'm saying this. Till maybe now it's 10 years plus, till then there was a law that if you have an area of a plot of this size, you have to go to the utility as space. Now that was never implemented effectively. So you always ran out of space, and particularly a place like Mumbai, that's a big problem. We implemented that, we got a lot of resistance in the beginning, but then everybody understood that that's a matter of right has to be given if you want electricity. And I tell you, the amount of space we got for substations and receiving stations was phenomenal. We never faced a problem thereafter as to find a space. What we did was that, okay, you take a space, but if you leave it as it is, then it will be, occupied by the society or whosoever it is. We said nothing doing, construct a room, put a pillar even if it is required to. Just put a pillar for the time being if you don't need a substation, and occupy that space. And we did that, and I tell you, it made tremendous change in availability of space. So utility has to use these powers and authorizations to use it.
Mr. Budh, you had a question.
So we just saw in your wonderful presentation in the many innovative technologies that you have used, such as making the substation underground and making of a substation over the drainage area. Now, don't you think, see, there are certain pilot projects which are going across, especially in the UPPCL, under RDSS project, of course, such as distribution health monitoring system. We were just talking about the load. You were monitoring the load on the distribution transformers. But when it comes to the resilience of the assets, utility assets, so when we have to measure the health of the transformers as such, so solutions like distribution health monitoring system, say drone-based health monitoring system or survey, or say, for example, using IoT sensors, etc., and of course the gateway to monitor and control the heat temperature using thermal imaging camera. So all these different packages. Generally, I mean, sorry, I should have introduced myself. My name is Vikas Budhija and belong to Digital Energy Solutions from Larsen and Toubro. It's a new initiative from Larsen and Toubro. So the point here is, what we have seen over the years, that there has been too much emphasis or focus on the pilot, introducing a pilot in many of the projects, especially say recently under RDSS scheme. But they have not been accepted completely. Either the focus is not there on the pilots, different pilots, and maybe the focus is more on the grid stability and all that. So the focus somewhere is missing. So all these new innovations, they always remain as pilot. They're not accepted completely or fully, if I'm correct. So what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. Whenever you are going for any pilot, actually, innovation is a top-down approach. Always in the organizations, this innovation is happening. So a lot of support is required from the top management for the expenditure, like giving the go-ahead for the pilot projects. And further, once you see the results that successfully you have implemented the pilot, then how you can scale it up across the organization. So that way we should always see. And that what you have mentioned is like technology roadmap, this thermo scanning camera monitoring the health of the power transformer and distribution transformers. So this is like a routine kind of thing we are doing in Tata Power, and we have gone for even this after this corrective, preventive and condition based monitoring, now predictive based monitoring we have gone for. So this predictive based monitoring, so we are going even this year, as you know, for the quality services we also got the Deming Prize award. So that is only for this giving the extraordinary services to the customers and innovation part. So a lot of like in Tata Power Delhi, even if you see we are trying for the international benchmark also through the Smart Grid Index. Tata Power Delhi is the only utility which is in the top 8 utilities across the globe. So that way also we are trying to do a lot of innovations and things, but we have rightly mentioned that after doing the pilot, it is the responsibility of top management how we can actually scale it up across the organization.
I think what you have to keep in mind, or everybody has to keep in mind, is there's always a cost-benefit analysis which needs to be done. Some of the projects do not give cost-benefit, or it has to be such a cost that it can be absorbed in the tariff in an easier manner. Otherwise, it will not be successful and it will not be explorated into wider horizon. So you have to balance between the cost to be incurred and the benefit it is likely to give, whether it's a payback period or it's a low impact on the consumers to gain the benefit.
Absolutely. This is a very important point Mr. Mehta has brought in.
So,
Disaster. If it can prevent a disaster, or if it can prevent, say, an outage, so why not? I mean, this is equally
so
important.
to answer the question a different way, if you look at some cities, the social cost of power is 40 times the cost of power. That's another way of doing a benefit analysis. In certain other places, it's 5 times. It's always higher than the cost of power. So I think to get the benefit analysis, you have to sort of go to the regulator and say, this is where I think they'll be big. So in Florida, to give you an example, in a way, there also the disaster management system is paying for all the restorations of the utilities. So it is not that they are putting it in regulatory asset and then waiting for 35 years. So the key question is happening the way he by law, because he's a franchisee for 25 years, he gets that benefit in his book that he has been signed off. But that has got to go away, because constantly if the taxpayer is going to pay for a ratepayer system, that also raises an issue. So this is not an easy subject just to say, okay, FEMA should take over all the time. Now, the second point I didn't make, because it's a distribution company, I didn't want to make it. In some cases, for example, FERC 881 for transmission regulates that now you will do it as per what is called temperature-based predictive loadability. So if you have a transmission line that goes across 4 temperature zones, you actually have to give what is called a 4-hour predictability. And the large transformers, if you actually map the thermal points, they are not equivalent to the top oil temperature at all. So you have, when the temperature goes up and down during the day, especially after a heavily loaded period, you could have very high hot spots at certain point, which doesn't get picked up by the top oil temperature because it takes time for those to come to the top oil. So these discussions are already going on in the West now. As to what point will India adopt it is a separate discussion. But that's all happening on the large assets, transformer assets, line assets. All that is coming through, in fact, through FERC 81. So there, if the regulator is going to impose it, it will have to go into tariff. So it's a different way of managing it. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Kale, for your presentation. Our next presenter is going to be you. So you asked a lot of questions, so you're the next presenter.
So I'm not going to present anything as such, but I'm just going to say something about this resilience, the grid asset resilience and how we can do it. So I've just written few points. We can do it, say, by improving our infrastructure. We can harden the infrastructure and modernize it. I think most of the points were covered under sir's presentation. The first one, of course, was undergrounding the main assets like the power lines and the substations and everything. So that would reduce the effect of the climate as well as the congested cities and the crowd and etc. The second thing would be there'll be one benefit which is not technical. I mean, I was about to ask this question to sir, but okay. So the thing is, apart from the regulation, apart from the civic body regulations, everything. See, a few of the areas, especially in India, we were talking about Odisha right now. So there's a regional, not regional, religious tourism over there. Okay, so there are religious communities over there. So there'll be a case where you'll have to install something or implement a new project, and there's a community center over there or religious community center over there. So all these technologies, new modernization and undergrounding stuff and all. So what it can do is it can benefit those communities as well, because you don't have to move them out of that place in the first place, so as to install your infrastructure or modernize it. The second one would be, apart from the undergrounding the power lines, would be the smart grid technologies are there, such as using the AI as well as the IoT-based sensors for monitoring the health of the assets, substation assets, or the distribution transformers, etc. The third one would be, climatic reaction. Say, for example, we can do the galvanizing, or we can use highly, resistive material to, say high temperature, high, water pressure, etc. So usage of high quality equipment for, especially for the electrical industry equipment. So these are basically, I mean, you'll have to you'll consider all these aspects or factors into unison so as to improve the infrastructure as a whole. The second point that I thought was, say, decentralization and basically maintaining the redundancy of the equipment. So when we talk about decentralization, so there are, you'll have to incorporate different energy resources, such as, say, we talk about floating solar, okay, rooftop solar. We talk about battery energy storage system. Okay, so all these different renewable energy resources, along with, of course, the conventional transmission and distribution, resources that we have. So power resources, conventional resources that we have. So if we can incorporate all those, so if we can decentralize, so as to say, so that can help us, maintaining the resilience for the grid equipment. And apart from that one, you can have, when we talk about regulatory bodies, okay, we can have public-private partnerships. We can have not only public-private partnerships, you can engage communities as well, like I said. You can engage normal customers as well. So all these factors, they can, I mean, if you see them together, they can somehow help, in improving the resilience of the, grid equipment, and they can protect, all these can protect them from, say, climatic effects as well as, crowd effect in the cities. So that's what I had to say.
Any comments? I have a few comments. Any questions or comments?
See, what you said is absolutely futuristic. Now, we are in a situation where the longevity of the equipment is large. Assets last for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Now, to change anything, you'll always live with the mixed infrastructure. You can never have 100% replaced infrastructure in one go. So what your recommendations are, they can only be done in bits and pieces. They can be done with a slight focus on a area-wise. But beyond that, I don't think any utility will be able to redo the entire utility area from this perspective. So you'll have to live with both. As far as participation of public is concerned, as long as they get electricity, they are not concerned. They get worked up when the electricity is not available to them because they think it's your right, it's your obligation to give electricity to me. So I have to receive electricity. Don't ask me to surrender something or participate in that process.
So very recently we received with this RFQ from one of the customer. I think it's down south somewhere in Kerala. And they had this concept of pro-consumers, they used to call it. So basically they can give the power back and stuff like that. So yeah, prosumers or pro-consumers. So basically when we talk about, engaging the community, so it's basically giving them the profit, not profit exactly, but making them part of the share. So basically giving them the confidence or convincing them that you can also earn, or you can also help to the society. You can also help society, and you can also gain apart from getting the electricity. So these are just different ways how we can change as a society as a whole.
See, it'll depend on which consumer you're talking about. If you're talking of a residential consumer, he does not have a space to put a capacity which would feed back into the system, except maybe at some times in the time when he is not needing it. In the daytime, he uses it. In the night, the utility does not want it to the most of the time because they also have surplus or it is less expensive available. So there has to be a balance. But what you say, yes, some experiments were done in the agriculture areas where they say, okay, give us part of the land and we'll do this, and then surplus you can put it back into the system. But it has, in my understanding, it has not been as successful in a great way.
So just two observations. I mean, to put it in a simple one-liner to what Mr. Mehta has been saying, in the COP discussions on just energy transition between the North and the South countries, why has the money not flowed is simply because we haven't paid for yesterday, how can we pay for tomorrow? So that is what it is. You have a 40, 45 year, in fact, the worst contract are the electric utility contracts. Nothing changes for 45 years. Everywhere else you have a churn of the product, the dies, the software dies, you buy a new software, etc. In our case, I'll tell you, it just is there for 40, 50, 60 years. So the question is, because you're moving at that slow pace, You haven't paid for yesterday, and the question is, how do you pay for tomorrow? That's number one. Number two, what happens, what you're saying is correct, that, we should be able to build a policy where the public is brought in. But the point I think here is, and I'm going to put Vijayan and you on a spot, because you both are, you were electrical equipment, he is still an electrical equipment manufacturer.
We are working together actually.
I know. I've been on your board, so I can vouch for Madhavdas. You also have to step up to come up with faster, cheaper, better. Not only in the EPC contracts that you do, and you do very well, but you have to come up and say, we are part of the solution to the problem in which the utility is facing. So to the extent he gave those 6 ideas that he is trying out, it'll be nice if, the OEM stepped up and say, I can now build a 1 MVA transformer which is only at 60% of the weight. Right? Things like that, right? And we are forcing that in the West. In fact, we are asking the large equipment manufacturers saying, you know what, you step up to the plate as well, right? As opposed to just having the utilities face the music every time. So there may be a better idea, like he did the undergrounding transformer with Toshiba. Yeah, he didn't do it by himself, right? And if you go to Tokyo, there are a lot of such examples that come up. Energy storage by the corner roadside, et cetera, which we haven't brought it to anywhere else in the world. So I'm not trying to be critical of the OEMs, but I think it'll be very nice because of the richness that you have to be able to talk on the equipment side to say, what can I do better, right? And then the conversation becomes a little more rich for the regulator. Otherwise, the regulator just doesn't budge because somebody says so, right? And so, not to put you on the spot, but I had to put you on the spot. Let's put it that. So.
I think you rightly said, I think we have seen, even in our interaction also, look, as Ravi sir just said, that utilities aren't manufacturers. They're not the technology solution. They are not the technology solution providers. They have problems, I think, but I think I see a gap where they are still not able to bridge what solutions, and probably the one reason is cost. Because as Ravi sir said that we are in a system where it's a regulated asset class system where everything boils down to the cost. Affordability is the primary benchmark for any regulator, and that is not going to change. So that scenario, I think OEMs and the technology solution providers need to keep in mind to work in. For example, the classic example is STLS conductor in this country. It was introduced 10-15 years back in this country. CTC, they got it from CTC, the code that they still provided. The cost of it hasn't gone down yet. You require it? Yeah, of course, the answer is you require it. ROW issue is solved, you're able to carry more power and so on and so forth. But having worked with some of the manufacturers before, I've realized that their ability and willingness to also reduce the cost in order to make it scalable is a problem. Like L&T is an also EPC company. You get products from different manufacturers, right?
They were once a manufacturer,
but you understand what I'm saying, right? So like for example, I'm just saying STLS because I had worked for them. So the ability to and willingness to actually reduce the cost so that scalability is easy. So whenever we had a conversation at CEA or regulators, they used to come and tell us, look, the cost of replacing the conductor with STLS and building a line is almost the same. That's the reality. So how can a regulator or a utility can justify that? If they have a ROW issue, of course they will go with the STLS. But if they have an option, they can build another new line. They say, let me do that. That way they will build redundancy and they will be far more secure. So I think that's been a problem of, I think that step up game needs to be there from the OEM and manufacturer side also. To able to scale up, you need to bring affordability to the utility, because at the end, utilities are also judged by the affordability as the key critical benchmark.
But having come to that, I'll come to your defense as well. Okay, so you can actually show through smart digital solutions that you have deferred a large capital upgrade. Right, that is the benefit. In fact, I've come to your places in San Francisco, Giant has taken me there, etc. That is one of the power of digitalization. That's true. Is to say you don't need to go and buy all the steel stuff. Oh, our chairman is here. We were just concluding and then we'll have your remarks as well, sir. Okay. So I think the power of digitalization through the OEM side needs to be a partner with the utility. Maybe you can then prove the benefit side by saying you can now defer an asset and actually capital asset deferment through digital solutions. That could be one way to answer your own question. Right. So anyway, now that our chairman is here, I'll hand over the floor to you, sir.
To the floor?
No. What we have done is that there have been 2 presentations, and then we'll have your opening remarks now, and then we'll go back to the program.
I think what I'll suggest is, if there are some outcomes, if you can tell me, and if you want my intervention, I'll do that.
So there were 2 or 3. Mr. Kale, if you want to talk. He presented 7 or 8 different ways in which in Orissa they managed on the wind side, on the flood side, on the temperature side. I talked about your heat map that CEA has produced, which I think is the first in the world perhaps with that kind of a heat map. The question truly then, Saab, is how are you testing the utility against your own heat map for capability, capacity, and short-term management, as opposed to derating on the balance sheet through the derating of the equipment. So that is the second aspect of it. There's just been a discussion, and we're concluding, is the digitalization and its impact on deferment of equipment overall. And in that discussion, I sort of very unfairly brought in the OEMs, saying you also have to be a part of the solution to prove the benefits so that the utilities can rest to say, we don't need capital asset deferment, capital asset upgrade, because the solution for the next 3-4 years at least can be managed digitally, and then we'll see where it is. So those were the 3 themes till now that we had talked about. The rest are much smaller things. We'll get into it.
Okay, thank you. So let me come to the deferment first. It's very easy to talk कि हम capex को defer कर देंगे and the system will work. Mostly, if I go back to California crisis, I think most of you must be knowing about that California crisis which happened. The situation there was that for last 4-5 years, they were on this mode. They didn't want to add more generating stations, more infrastructure. They were thinking that they will be able to manage the entire system simply by DSM, demand side management, efficiency measures, and probably by participation of the consumers also. Incidentally, that year what happened was there was low hydro scenario. So hydro generation came down. There was a huge gap between the demand and supply. The prices, the retail price, the supply side prices started rocketing high, but the retail side was regulated. There was a big gap. Net result was crisis. So that probably gave us a very good lesson at that time, because I still remember 2000, it was 2002 if I recall correctly. And just 1 month baad hi I landed up in California and I met the regulators, I met the utility, both of them together. And the decision after some time, because they also tried to involve us in planning their system, effectively it came out to be that there has to be good amount of redundancy that has required to be built into the systems. There are various scenarios. One is definitely a base case scenario, which is the most optimal scenario, wherein everything looks good. The prices also seems to be lower. But since power sector is highly dependent on weather conditions, and one of them you also told about heat waves and all, so you never know what kind of resources that will be available to you during that particular time. And it is more true for Indian conditions as well. Many a times you must be seeing that for a long-term plan we have certain figures, but when it exactly comes to the day-to-day meeting of the demand, the things entirely becomes totally different. If you take last year, April, May, June, we thought that the demand will be much higher, but incidentally because of the rain, it didn't go. So these kind of situation will keep on happening. So we have to take some kind of a middle path wherein at least we go slightly in a suboptimal manner so that we are able to meet that contingencies as well. So we should be able to, we should prepare ourselves for that contingency. Now for this meeting this contingency, wherever capex is required, please do so. Don't defer that capex, because the moment that situation arises, you will not be able to build that infrastructure in a shortest possible time. It has a definitive lead time, whether it is transmission or distribution or in terms of supply side. So since all of them have a definitive lead time, so you must try to ensure that your system is totally resilient enough to take care of the worst condition in the grid, in the system. Particularly people sitting in Delhi और जो आपके ऐसे ऐसे जगह पे हैं जहाँ कि आप एक सेकंड की लोड शेडिंग आप बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकते हो, तो वहाँ के लिए आप सोचोगे कि मैं इस तरह का प्लान करके चल पड़ूँ और कंज्यूमर को भी इन्वॉल्व कर लूँ, कंज्यूमर मेरे को शायद सपोर्ट कर देगा, बिकॉज दैट कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर अगेन इज नॉट अंडर योर कंट्रोल. We have to understand this nuances in the distribution utilities as well. I can have some kind of an average figure, some kind of a projected figure, but whether that consumer is going to really assist me at that point of time when I really need it, probably that's not under our control. He may or may not. I can't force. So we need to build this kind of a scenario, and we must have enough cushion to take care of this kind of a situation. So probably that's the first part which I felt. And accordingly, the only challenge that comes before the distribution utility is probably whether this capex is being allowed by the regulator to be built into the rate base. Probably that's the real challenge. Maybe you might project 1,000 crores. He will say, no, 1,000 crores is not required. Can you do it in 500 crores itself? So that kind of a challenge will keep on happening. It will totally depend on the strength of the DISCOMs, how fast and how best he is able to convince the regulator. But definitely that is required to my understanding. Second part was regarding
whether you're going to ask your heat map to be tested by the utilities for their withstand capability and resilience, or are you going to leave it as just a guidance?
See, during the planning phase, I'll only say that it all amounts to only guidance. But that is how you must have seen, even in the resource adequacy plans, what we have, the structure that has been made there is, we have a long-term plan, and then we have a short-term plan as well. And then we also say that as you approach to the real time, you must have a very definite solutions to meet that demand. So, in +1, that means 2 years hence from now, you may have sudden deficit in tie-up, absolutely no issues on that. But as you get closer to the Y, that means the same year, you must have 100% tie-up based on the coincidental peak that the country is going to have. What does this mean is, whenever country is going to have that peak, if everybody has tied up his own share, definitely somebody will be tying slightly higher than that as well. So at least the country as a whole will be able to meet that demand. Rest other period, definitely the demand will be much lower than that. And since there will be resources, so you will not fall short of that resources. So country as a whole, you will have the entire resources available to you to meet the demand at any given point of time. Okay. So now when it comes to the real time, which means from the time of dispatch till 1 year, which is the responsibility that has been given to the state load dispatch centers or the RLDCs. And there they have to ensure that you have enough capacity for the next year and even for the next day, next week, next month, next quarter, like that. And this is just to say, that's to ensure that the capacity is available so that you don't fall short of it in terms of meeting the expectations and the demand of the consumer. Variability will keep on happening. Variability in terms of the weather conditions, whether it is a heat wave or it is a delayed monsoon, it is low hydro, all these things will keep on happening. Even you don't get this kind of a filler from the weather forecaster, on a very predictable manner as such. So ये चलता रहेगा, but we'll have to have that cushion.
Before the consumer really realizes that he's been inconvenienced, it goes through that process, with the exception that hospitals and things like that are essential services and they cannot be part of the retention. So that is an implementation, but that's only...
This I'll say is a contingency.
Yeah, contingency.
This cannot be a normal operation of a distribution utility. So far I was talking about the normal operation wherein zero tolerance. That means now we are moving to a zone where I don't see and expect any distribution utility to do a load shedding of even a single minute, right? So that's a condition, that's the plan. Now the second question comes is, okay, if something of this nature happens, then what do we do? So for that, definitely rotational load shedding is one of the option. Or now you have a real-time market, so you go to the market, purchase इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, सो एटलीस्ट 1.5 घंटा का आपको रहेगा, तो 1.5 घंटा आप मैनेज कर ले सकते हो, तो फिर आप साइकिल में आ जाओ, ठीक है. बट मेनी टाइम्स अभी जो इंडियन कंडीशंस है उसमें पर्टिकुलरली ड्यूरिंग द क्रंच पीरियड जो हमारा 30-40 दिन का होता है साल भर में, उसमें आपको पावर वहाँ नहीं मिलेगी. इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू गेट पावर फ्रॉम देयर. सो दैट इज़ हाउ वी हैड बीन एडवाइजिंग द डिस्कॉम्स to please have a tie-up, particularly for the crunch months. That is April, May, June and August and September. These are the 5 months. Depending on the situation, sometimes it is early, sometimes it is slightly late. But depending on this, you must have the firm tie-up so that at least you don't end up into the mismanagement due to the non-availability of power in the power exchanges. वो नहीं होना चाहिए. कहीं हमारी डेप्थ नहीं है अभी वहाँ. सर आप पीछे क्यों बैठे हैं?
No, there are so many seats.
अच्छा, okay.
Source adequacy planning, where you are saying that if country as a whole has power, then nobody will suffer. But in terms of the contractual arrangement, because somebody's power may be used by someone else, unless you already covered, and we can talk to you later, how will that happen? That I know I'm going to be short, and somebody else knows that you're surplus, and the overall consolidation therefore shows there is no deficit. Now I may be short and you may be surplus, you may be buying somewhere, I may be scaling down or not scaling down, maybe I am storing power, that could be a choice. How do we manage that availability is actually, that surpluses when somebody is short are made available?
So probably I am known for disruptions, right? इसके पहले भी बहुत एक्सपेरिमेंट कर चुका हूँ, एक और करने जा रहा हूँ. And already that rule is already there. I am just waiting for one more amendment to be done so that we can roll it out. Idea is to have flexibility in the PPA itself. Right now you have a PPA which is almost hardcore between the buyer and the seller. So how can we break this umbilical cord? Which is a win-win situation for both of them. Then only both of them will agree, right? Otherwise, you cannot disturb that PPA.
I thought you've already thought of it, and I don't know. But if you're still thinking of...
No, it is already there. We have brought the rules. I was very confident that I'll be able to roll it out the moment the rule is notified. But incidentally, one challenge has come from the Ministry of Coal side, and that is how the entire rule is held up. And we are waiting for the cabinet approval. So the moment that cabinet approval happens, we'll start doing it. Already we have started doing it with respect to our CPSUs, wherein I don't face any challenge. They are giving coal to me, to the CPSUs. So NTPC and DVC plants, they are already doing it. If I tell you for the last 10 months, they have been able to dispatch 490 million units of this surplus capacity because of this enabling factor. So the construct there is that if you have surplus power available in a day ahead time frame, then you need to go and offer that power in the market. So just now I was telling to you that my depth in the market is low, and it's not that the country doesn't have the capacity. Country do have the capacity, but what is happening is it is all tied up in the mess. Somebody have as a generator, somebody is buyer, but it is there and closely knit mess is there. So you need to break this mess. So how do you do this? I said, okay, fine. If somebody has given you a schedule on the day ahead time, other than that, whatever is left out, that left out power has to be mandatorily sold into the day ahead market. Sorry, offered, not sold, offered. अब इसमें there was a chance of gaming as well. So what we said is कि आपका ECR को आपको 20% से ज़्यादा आपको नहीं रखना है. मैक्सिमम आप 20% अप एंड डाउन कर सकते हो. डाउन तो कोई नहीं करेगा, ECR से ऊपर ही करेगा. बट डाउन में इसलिए कहा कि हो सकता है किसी टाइम ब्लॉक में आप कम कर दिए और किसी टाइम ब्लॉक में आप ज़्यादा कर दिए, तो ऑन एन एवरेज यू विल एबल टू गेट दैट काइंड ऑफ अ प्राइसिंग. So effectively what is going to happen is this power will, since it is offered, so supply side आपकी constant नहीं रहेगी. आज के दिन पे मार्केट में देखोगे तो आपका डिमांड साइड तो बहुत है, बिड्स हैं, बट सप्लाई साइड बिड्स नहीं है, एंड दैट इज हाउ इट इज नॉट मैच्योरिंग. दूसरा क्या है, यदि आपका क्लियर हो गया बहुत अच्छी बात है, दैट मीन्स यू हैव अ डेफिनेट अमाउंट दैट विल गेट डिस्पैच्ड. सम अदर पीपल who is not your buyer but somebody else, he will be able to have the benefit out of it, right? Number 3, इसमें सबको पैसे दिए गए हैं. हमने कहा कि जनरेटर को चलो जितना भी आप, because MCP is always going to be higher than the offered price, except the person who is sitting at the margin, जिसकी वजह से MCP डिसाइड हो रहा है. अब लेट्स से 3 रुपया है, ठीक है, तो 3 रुपये 60 पैसे तक वो ऑफर कर सकता है. उसका ECR
3 रुपये तक, 3 रुपये उसका PPA का प्राइस है.
ECR यदि उसका 3 रुपया है तो 20% मैंने कहा तो 60 पैसा एक्स्ट्रा हो गया, तो 3 रुपये 60 पैसे तक वो ऑफर कर सकता है तक. उससे नीचे बेशक को कर सकता है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. लेट से उसकी क्लियर होती है 3 रुपये 80 पैसे पे, बिकॉज देर आर अदर जनरेटर्स आल्सो. ही इज हैप्पी, राइट. अब ये जो आपको एक्स्ट्रा पैसा मिला, राइट, देन द ECR, उसके डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की एक फार्मूला भी वहाँ डाली हुई है.
इसमें तो PPA में लिखा होता है सर.
नहीं, वो PPA से नहीं अब गवर्न होगा, दैट विल बी गवर्न थ्रू दिस रूल, एंड रूल में उसके डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन क्लैरिटी के साथ है. PPA में तो कहीं नहीं लिखा हुआ है कि आपका ये मैकेनिज्म आपको फॉलो करना है, ठीक है. सो इट विल नॉट गेट गवर्न बाय द PPA.
कईयों में है.
It will not be governed by the PPA, and because this is now a mandate coming out through the statute, so this will have an overriding effect, right? अब इसमें फॉर्मूले भी आपके डाले हुए हैं. अब देखिए बेनिफिट क्या क्या होने वाला है. पहला 3 पैसा तो आपको जनरेटर को मिल गया. उसके बाद की जो बाइफर्केशन है उसमें है कि फिक्स कॉस्ट आपको इमीडिएटली मिल जाएगा. उसके बाद भी लेट से पैसा कुछ और बच जाता है, तो आपका यदि कोई ड्यूज बचा हुआ है,
फिक्स कॉस्ट मिलेगी पूल से,
इसी से लेट से कि आप, चलो मैं यही एग्जांपल लेता हूँ. 3 रुपये 60 पैसे आपका ECR था, सॉरी 3 रुपये आपका ECR था, आपका 3 रुपये 80 पैसे पे आपका क्लोज हो गया, राइट. 80 पैसे आपके पास एक्स्ट्रा आ गई.
और फिक्स चार्जेस 1.5 रुपये है सपोज.
वहीं आ रहा हूँ. फिक्स कॉस्ट तो इन्हीं के सबका जो ओरिजिनल बायर है वो दे रहा है ना,
तो वही प्रॉब्लम है.
नहीं प्रॉब्लम नहीं है वहाँ पे, वही बता रहा हूँ मैं. अब यहाँ पे क्या होगा, 80 पैसा जो है इसका 3 पैसा तो आपको तुरंत मिल गया, इसका ECR का ही. अब बच गया आपके पास 77 पैसा. 1 रुपये का आपका मान लिया आपने फिक्स कॉस्ट बता दिया, तो 77 पैसा स्ट्रेट अवे विल गो एंड गेट कॉम्पनसेटेड टू द ECR ऑफ द बायर, जो एक्चुअल आपका जिसके साथ आपका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट था. उस बंदे को ही फायदा हो रहा है जिसने इसको अलाउ किया आपको बेचने के लिए. अलाउ नहीं भी, आप तो खैर मैंडेट ही हम हटा रहे हैं वहाँ से कि कंसेंट लेने की आपको जरूरत नहीं है.
Would you allow me to be a devil's advocate, sir?
सॉरी, Absolutely, go ahead. In fact, I have been debating the, and आज भी एक मीटिंग करके आया हूँ इसी के ऊपर.
सर डेविल्स एडवोकेट इसलिए है बिकॉज वो कई बारी चीज़ें सामने आएंगी.
हाँ बताइए ना.
Because my understanding of the PPAs, that to the extent I have seen, is that if I do not need power as a buyer, then I am allowed to not buy, right? And I pay my fixed charges. There are PPA terms, I don't know which situation, that if I actually sell that power and I recover anything above the ECR, then it belongs to me.
आप कीजिए ना.
हाँ सर ये.
से देखिए, यहाँ पे आपने जो कहा ना बहुत अच्छा कहा. मैं तो चाहता हूँ कि डिस्कॉम उसको बाई कर ले और वो खुद ही जाए मार्केट में, उसमें डिस्कॉम को फायदा है.
तो मेरा एक कहीं से
तो वहाँ क्या होगा, नहीं सुन लीजिए, वहाँ क्या होगा कि मेरे पास सरप्लस कैपेसिटी नहीं बचेगी. दिस सिचुएशन अराइजेस ओनली इफ देयर इज अ सरप्लस कैपेसिटी. सो आई वांट टू यूटिलाइज दैट सरप्लस कैपेसिटी फॉर द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ ऑल अदर बायर्स इनटू द सिस्टम.
एक मेरे दिमाग में बात आई थी सर, जो आई हैव सीन हैपनिंग इन अ डिफरेंट कंट्री, और आप जो हम कर रहे हैं, इट इज़ समथिंग लाइक वी आर सेइंग दिस कंकरेंट लिस्ट इज़ नाउ नो लॉन्गर, पीपीएस हैं आपके सारे, यू विल गेट द बेनिफिट ऑफ द पीपीएस एज इफ इट इज़ योर पीपीए एंड योर सरप्लस इज बीइंग यूज्ड बिकॉज कंट्री नीड्स दैट पावर. ठीक है, जो एक
बट उसको फायदा हो रहा है ना.
हाँ सर मैं मान गया हूँ. मेरे दिमाग में कुछ और चीज़ आ रही है, जो एक प्रोपोजिशन था शायद व्हेन यू आर आल्सो इन द मिनिस्ट्री, जो नेशनल लेवल मेरिट ऑर्डर डिस्पैच था. Now, theoretically, I mean, I know you can say कि नहीं होगा अभी. Can every generator bid for power for the next day, even though it's PPA? एक screen sir. I'm just giving you the concept, and might be then we will filter down concurrent list है ये सब चीज़ के. सिंगापुर में क्या होता है सर, हमने स्टडी किया था बिकॉज ऑफ द टेमेसेक एसेट्स.
मैं आपको शॉर्ट में बताया.
अगर सारे हम उस लेवल पे आ जाएं कि जिसका सबसे कम कोल कंजम्पशन है, जिसकी मतलब एनवायरनमेंट एंगल भी आ गया, उनको हम शेड्यूल करेंगे एंड द शेड्यूलिंग विल हैपन बेस्ड ऑन द डिमांड. नाउ जिसका पावर देन द सेटलमेंट, तो वो नेशनल लेवल डिस्पैच जो रेगुलेशन आया था, मेरे हिसाब से दैट वाज द बेस्ट.
रेगुलेशन नहीं आया था, वो तो सिर्फ एक कंस्ट्रक्ट आई थी, मार्केट बेस्ड इकोनॉमिक डिस्पैच का जो हमारा कंस्ट्रक्ट था. इट वाज नॉट सुपर. आपको बताऊंगा उसके न्यूएंसेस क्या कहते हैं.
तो वही चीज़ आपको यहाँ भी आ सकती है.
आपको मैं बता रहा हूँ कि हमने क्या किया, उससे बेटर अभी ऑप्शन किया हुआ है.
अगर है तो अच्छा है.
अभी हमने क्या किया है, उसमें क्या था कि देयर वाज ए एलिमेंट ऑफ वॉलेटिलिटी टू द मार्केट, बिकॉज आपकी अभी जो मार्केट है वो अभी सप्लायर्स मार्केट है, राइट. सो दैट मीन देयर इज सप्लायर्स डेफिसिट. तो इट विल ऑलवेज बी volatile and prices will go to the toss. इसकी वजह हमने क्या किया, अभी हमने कहा कि आपको सिक्योरिटी कांस्टेंट इकोनॉमिक डिस्पैच हम करेंगे और इसमें जो भी आपकी 62 की डिटरमिन्ड प्राइस है या 63 की डिस्कवर्ड प्राइस है, एडॉप्टेड प्राइस है, दैट प्राइस विल बी एश्योर्ड टू यू. सो देयर इज नो लॉस टू द जनरेटर. एट द सेम टाइम आई एम escaping from the price volatility, and I am doing the same merit order dispatch at the last moment through security constant economic dispatch. और ये हमारा सारा ISGS के लिए हो रहा है, आज के दिन पे सबके लिए हो रहा है. अब इसी का दूसरा कंस्ट्रक्ट क्या था, बिकॉज स्टेट वाले इन्वॉल्व नहीं थे, तो अभी वी आर एक्सपेरिमेंटिंग विथ महाराष्ट्र. एंड महाराष्ट्र का जो अभी डमी एक्सपेरिमेंट जो अभी रिजल्ट आई है, उसमें उनको गेन नज़र आ गई है. सो नाउ दे आर गोइंग टू इम्प्लीमेंट इट इन रियल टाइम. बना हुआ है, सॉफ्टवेयर बन गया. अरे नहीं, हमें कुछ नहीं करना है, करेगा वही लोग करेगा. लेकिन वही है ना कि आज के दिन पे जब तक ये कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं आती है, हम लोग उसके 1 साल से पीछे पड़े हुए हैं. नहीं, सॉफ्टवेयर किसी को बनाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. सारा सॉफ्टवेयर उनके पास ही रहेगी, और ये इकोनॉमिक जो SCED होगा, वो SCED स्टेट खुद ही रन करेगा और खुद ही उसके बेनिफिट मिलेगी. सो दिस विल हैपन. इसमें एक और कंस्ट्रक्ट हम लोग करने जा रहे हैं, विच इज टेकिंग सम मोर टाइम. इज राइट नाउ वी आर डूइंग इट आफ्टर RTM गेट क्लोजर इज देयर. इसको हम डे हेड पे भी एक करना चाहते हैं, एक और साइकिल हम डे हेड पे ही करना चाहते हैं, ताकि एटलीस्ट कुछ जो हमारा पावर प्लांट है, जो आज के उस अगले दिन के लिए डिस्पैच उसको नहीं मिला है, वो भी इसमें शामिल हो जाए. तो ये करूँगा, बट इसमें भी टाइम लगेगा, बिकॉज स्टिल वी नीड टू कैच अप. देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स दैट इज हैपनिंग. अभी कहे कि अभी हमारा नेक्स्ट टारगेट है कि हमको 15 मिनट्स टाइम ब्लॉक से 5 मिनट्स टाइम ब्लॉक भी लेके आना है.
ये बहुत यूजफुल रहेगा. You see, I mean, obviously it's your structure, but I'm saying not because once you have this solar capacity additions, there is going to be a case for some of the power plants. Owners will tell boss, you don't need your plant for 5 years. Please shut down, do FGD, do cold stacking, warm stacking, जो भी है. This would be a good way to get out of that obligation and make somebody else take the money for it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oil and gas times when bigs were.
देखिए मैं कॉन्फिडेंट हूँ कि ये चल पड़ेगा मेरा, बिकॉज क्या है कि मैं इसको एक्सपेरिमेंट कर चुका हूँ एफएसए के केस में, जो फ्लेक्सिबल ऑपरेशन ऑफ कोल जो हमने करवाया था. आई थिंक सम ऑफ यू मस्ट बी नोइंग अबाउट इट.
Down the road, when I have RTC power from solar at this price, tell me which power plants of yours you will want to get out of. You have a PPA. You can't get out of.
नहीं, मुझे खुद पता है कि मैं कितने पापड़ बेला हूँ इस पीपीए के चक्कर में. रादर एफएसए को फ्लेक्सिबल करना मेरे लिए ज़्यादा चैलेंजिंग था. उस समय मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कोल इन्वॉल्व थी, सीआईएल वाज वेरी मच रिजिड ऑन इट. रादर जिस हिसाब से उसको करना चाह रहा था पूरा तो नहीं हो पाया 100%, बट एटलीस्ट दे हैव डन अप टू द सब्सिडियरी लेवल. हमारा कंस्ट्रक्ट उसमें था जो कि मैंने कैबिनेट में गए थे, उसमें हमने कहा था कि सीआईएल लेवल पे आप करा दीजिए इसको, जिसमें कि आपका एमसीएल, सीसीएल सब सारे सब्सिडियरी मिला करके, तो उसमें और ज़्यादा ऑप्टिमाइजेशन थी. तो अभी एटलीस्ट सब्सिडियरी लेवल पे इधर और हमारा उधर कंपनी लेवल पे, जैसे एनटीपीसी एज ए होल ही कैन टेक द कोल टू एनीवेयर विद इन हिज ओन कंपनी. तो ये फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी हो गया. तो इससे क्या हुआ कि आपका जो एफएसए था विच वॉज फ्रॉम अ माइन टू अ पावर प्लांट, दैट गॉट टू नाउ फ्रॉम मल्टीपल माइन ऑफ दैट सब्सिडियरी टू मल्टीपल माइंस. तो ये कंस्ट्रक्ट होता है आपका. वर्चुअली क्या हुआ उसमें कि आपका एफएसए फ्लेक्सिबल हो गया. और वही चीज़ मैं यहाँ करूँगा अभी.
सबके लिए है, सारी माइन भी सबके लिए
है. तो उसमें देखे उसमें भी देखो यार, मैं ये वर्ड जानबूझ के यूज़ नहीं करना चाहता हूँ. ये कंकरेंट वर्ड यूज़ करके क्यों झगड़ा करवाना चाहता है जब काम आसानी से हो रहा है. तो चलिए.
The last, before we go to the rest of the panel, was in the West there is an ambient adjusted or dynamic rating of large equipment. What is your view that India will follow suit or not follow suit on 4-hour ambient adjusted rating for lines, large power transformers, etc., etc.?
Dynamic rating we are already trying. I think already we have told our grade they are trying as a pilot in one of the circuit. So definitely that's the future, and we must go for it. I mean, that's plain and simple.
Thank you, sir. So we'll continue on the list now. Amit Tripathi has spoken. I don't see Mr. Tirlochan Panda. Is he here somewhere?
No, he's not here.
Okay. So then we move on to Abel. Abel he's the head of the APWA, the Association.
Yeah, we were there in the inauguration.
Right. So
yes.
Your floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and the Chair Prasad to join the panel. We have two main points on utility in Africa. Is first congestion. Like you know, the accelerated growth of population is with half of them living in town. So no matter you plan your equipment, you cannot follow this rate of growth of population. So what happened? That you plan, but it comes a time that your equipment, your infrastructure cannot face this growth. So now you go ahead and plan larger than what you need. So the CAPEX fill it. In some cases, your equipment that you put in place, take a town like Abuja. Abuja is a very new city plan. But how you plan at the beginning for 10 million people. But when Abuja started, it's less than 2 million people. So, see, big equipment. Today is going to the limit. But 10 years ago, it's like huge CapEx for nothing. If you don't pass this way, so you come to the place that your infrastructure is not resilient to accommodate this crowded city. That's the first point. The second point, the growth of population also make that the city planning, where your domestic, housing and industrial zone. If you don't design an industrial zone and have your equipment, sometimes you have small industry located in between living area. The equipment cannot resist to this. So it's come that you have to plan your city and equipment to follow this. You have a production, go to the industrial zone. Don't stay in living area. That's the second. Make the infrastructure not resilient to this development. And the last one is what about calamity, cyclones? You know that all the country going from Mauritius, I talk about it, going from Mauritius, so Malawi, Tanzania, every year, Mozambique, they experience this cyclone. 3 years ago, half of the network in part of Mozambique brought away. 2 years ago was Malawi with a dam. They lost completely the dam site. So they went to secure very quickly not to lose all the equipment. So when you are planning in such cases, you have to plan to be resilient to those cases. So there again, the CapEx is not just justified because you are planning heavier than what you need. But if you don't plan such way, no. So what is a national, funding, that is okay. But when you are facing donor fund or any DFI, sometimes they say, no, this is too heavy for you because they don't integrate this plan. So planning, design should to be accommodate this resilience. If not, you pay more later to face the issue. So that is the cases that we are facing in the Power-DDL in Africa. Yeah. I escape the wind. Sometime you have in the network between Togo, Ghana, Benin. I was in 96 that we have the information 12 hours before it's happened that the wind is coming from Brazil to cross the zone more than 130 km/h. Went quickly to secure. It was the it's 63 kV line. Whatever happened, we lost 3 towers. Even when so the next line to plan now we raise the security, but the cost is there also to pay for this. But if you pay for it, then you survive when it's happened. Yeah. That is the key.
So I guess your question is, how do you make the assumptions valid so that you can plan and pay for it ahead of time? And that may be a debate in itself through the regulatory system.
Yes, we have now a good record of all those natural events. So we go for record of 20 or 30 years, what happened, and the forecast. And we now be able to indicate, okay, the heavier that we have maybe is 120 or 130 km/h. So you raise the security until maybe 140. You plan for this. Now, when you face the regulator, say no. How can you invest heavily for this? And I say no. If I don't invest now, maybe you, like regulator, don't know it today, but tomorrow they will face it. So we pay today for tomorrow. So the only assumption is that to pay today for tomorrow, unless you don't do it, and then you face the problem. So, like we have some record of, like in the case of Malawi, it was Essackjee. Essackjee infrastructure is a dam. Even it was a clash with World Bank because they cannot understand how this, fixing the dam can cost so heavily, but definitively the national utility with local bank invest to refurbish all the dam. So even with World Bank, they cannot understand because it's happening, yes.
I think he has three issues, it seems. One is how do you tackle to the growing demand of the area, and particularly in the event when the concentration of the people is increasing to an extent where you don't find right of way. Probably I think Delhi is also facing the similar situation.
Mumbai, Delhi, same.
Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, most of these places in India also we do face similar situations. Because initially when a town is planned, it is planned for certain capacity. But what effectively happens is the single story building will become 10-story building. So similar thing keeps on happening. Some places industrialization will come, some other developments keeps on happening. So the only way out that we think and we are trying to cope up is that we need to have a dynamic planning. This is what we have introduced now. And we say that at least every year we must do that journey. Earlier we used to do it as on 5-year basis. So that didn't help because during that 5 years a lot of things changes and the gap keeps on getting wider and wider. So instead of doing that, if we are able to plan dynamically every year, then you can take the corrective action of the previous year and have the next 10 years plan for you. This is one way. Second is in terms of the cyclone prone areas, we do have a lot of examples in India as well. We have, and the best example coming out from Odisha, the discoms which Tata Power is now handling. Almost every year smaller one, and every 2 years you will have a bigger one. So, and the moment the bigger one comes, probably it gets a lot of things happens. Good thing now over the years we have been able to gain that experience, and now at least we are able to predict a cyclone path through which it is going to happen and what could be the velocity, to what extent it is going to impact, at least 4-5 days in advance. So that kind of expertise we have developed now. So the grid operators, whether it is central grid operators or the state grid operators, they are in sync and they are able to predict the exact path, almost exact path, and where it is going to land and what are the areas that is going to be affected. So once you know that trajectory 4-5 days in advance, you have sufficient time to plan for restoration. You know the things are going to happen, right? So two strategy. One is when things is going to come, what is the affected area and what are the kind of, and since all these are now mapped, the lines, the consumers, etc., everything is mapped. You know the requirement, how many transformers, how many lines, how many poles, what kind of conductors will be required. So you know the inventory is placed. Similarly, you know even the, we have something called emergency restoration systems as well. So these ERS is also planned at a location which is not in the path of that cyclone. The moment something happens, they are given the instruction to immediately rush to these areas. Second thing that is supposed to be done in such area is that you must slowly and slowly, you rightly said that you may not have the enough fund to do it all at the same time. So slowly and slowly you must have a roadmap to change this network to the resilient network. And these networks will be that, since if something is overhead, you must try to do it underground. So we had a committee and we had already recommended that on the Odisha coastal area, 60 kilometers from the coast, all of them must go underground. So something of this call will have to be taken by area specific requirement and then slowly and slowly implemented in phases. Then
the grounding is very, very important issue.
Yeah. And the third thing that happens here is, and which we learned from the cyclone Fani, which was one of the worst during my tenure in ministry. It took me around 30 to 35 days to finally restore the entire system, and that was the longest period which we faced the issue. And that was the time when we saw that even the communication, besides power, you need good communication as well. And that was the time when communication got disrupted. We were not able to contact people other than some satellite phones that was issued, and that was also issued after I think 5-6 hours. So during that 5-6 hours there was absolutely zero contact, and that gave us a learning how do we strengthen the communication and alternate communication so that at least we are able to contact the people in such disaster time. Number 4 is, whenever such thing happens, at least you must have the dedicated team and they must know the roles and responsibility. That means the response team must be very clear and his area must be defined. He must go, even if there is a loss of communication, he must go check and start doing the work. So these are some of the learnings that we had.
For that, we keep some response system with Turaya to be completely dependent on communication on satellite.
One more thing that comes, and that is what we have done, particularly in case of transmission, because during the Fani time we had huge amount of state transmission lines which was affected. So we have now said that we'll upgrade one more wind zone. That means we'll design everything and strengthen everything for one higher wind zone. So that has been that is being implemented in most of the area which is cyclone prone, so that at least it doesn't get affected because of the wind velocities. So you need to take.
So actually we have shown in our presentation that how we have built up the resilient network in Odisha, like how we have designed the different transmission poles, structures, jet spun poles, and so that way, so a lot of things like for 300 kmph we have developed that kind of resilient network and the infrastructures with a lot of innovations with the government utilities and all. So this is type tested in CPRI Bangalore, and then we have implemented it subsequently. So
slightly a separate design you will have to have for the disaster prone areas.
Yes. So for example, as in CDRI also we did a work.
You are from CDRI?
Yes,
okay.
From CDRI, and there. So
I think you have a very good report on Fani. Why don't you share one with them?
Sure, sir. So it's also important. It's also important because, of course, as it said that 0 to 20 kilometers, and after Cyclone Fani, CA took the lead in coming up with a task force report which specifically looked the issue around the cyclone. So that's the beginning point for anyone who want to build around that.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we also referred a lot of things. And what we did, we mapped entire T&D infrastructure of Odisha from 0 to 60 kilometers of the coast, because it came from that thing. And what we did the vulnerability assessment of those assets. On the parameters, how was the span length, how old the assets were, the past history of the failures of the assets, and so on and so forth. And then we gave them some ranking. And then what we did, because what is vulnerable doesn't mean that it will be critical. So we did the criticality analysis as well over the day. And then on that basis, we created priority ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3 lines. work given to utilities, and we are now working with Gridco and Tata Power in terms of to roll out in a, as you said, in a staggered way. Like work on priority 1, 0 to 20 kilometers of the coast first, and build those resilience measures. Subsequently, India. Now we are having a discussion with ADB also, sir.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing. So whole effort should be also, so resilience risk planning is very important in that sense, I think, for a long-term mitigation.
Sometimes what happens is planning takes more than 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So we lose time.
We lose time. But planning should be part of, sir, their SOPs to do it.
So what I normally suggest whenever such, particularly when you talk about the World Bank and ADB and all, so it takes more than 3 to 4 years time
for them to disperse funds.
So first fund that will start coming will be after 4 years or so. So what I say is mostly you can bifurcate in pieces, so that at least whatever is freezed, you can go ahead right in the very beginning itself, and that is how the things should be rolled out. Yeah, good experience.
Mr. Mehta, do you want to continue, or should we go to the next speaker? You are next to speak. Okay. So then after that, we have Mr. Ismael from Mauritius. No, it will be better. We are running short of time. So
I have a few pictures which I wanted to show anyway. So I'm from Mauritius, Central Electricity Board. So we are one of the...
You have a presentation. How much time it will take?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Go ahead.
If you can please...
Let's know what Mauritius is doing also.
Thank you.
Always we should not talk about India. Yeah, please go ahead.
Can you just please put the presentation?
Meanwhile, you can explain till that.
No, it will be better. We are running short of time. So
I have a few pictures which I wanted to show anyway. So I'm from Mauritius, Central Electricity Board. So we are one of the...
You have a presentation. How much time it will take?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Go ahead.
If you can please...
Let's know what Mauritius is doing also.
Thank you.
Always we should not talk about India. Yeah, please go ahead.
Can you just please put the presentation?
Meanwhile, you can explain till that.
That side you can point out that side.
Anyway, so let me just, I don't think the pointer is working. Yes, we are hit by one of the most impactful cyclone a couple of years back, and we were planning initially, due to planning, we say 50 years return period and so on. So this is where Mauritius is, and it's working now. Okay, I think we can skip it. Anyway, this is a... Okay, so this is our population. We are known for the dodo and so on. And so I was saying like 80% of climate impact is due to cyclone. And a few things that we have been doing for our transmission system is, anyway, it's about the number one is to have battery energy storage system. If ever there's a cyclone, part of the grid or the whole grid is down, we can supply areas with battery energy storage. Right now we have around 38 megawatts. So the maximum demand is actually 567. Okay, so we had this year. And we are currently signing off another contract for the implementation of 60 megawatt of battery energy storage devices. So this is number one for the transmission grid. Number two is the replacement. So this graph, if you see, anyway, this is where you've got in red, these are the major cyclones where you had winds over 250 to 60 kilometers. And you see it in the current year, maybe to the right of it, it's much more frequent. So this is a serious case for us because it's impacting, and as you know, maybe if you revisit Maslow hierarchy of needs, electricity is maybe the basic needs nowadays. Without electricity, people don't have power, don't have water, don't have communication. So that's why it's so important. And this is the grid. I will skip this one. The central part is made up of a 132 kV grid. So it has been designed to be able to resist 280 kilometers per hour. But the existing distribution infrastructure can raise up to 240 kilometers. So we have had to plan a few additional things. Number one, I was telling you, was Anyway, I don't think this is going to work. Number one was about the battery energy storage. Second was about replacement of our wooden pole, a systematic replacement of our wooden pole by concrete pole, and even concrete pole. So this was the image about our latest battery energy storage system which we installed.
So this is for how much hour?
For 1 hour.
1 hour.
1 hour, and then the one that we are procuring right now is going to be for 3 hours because our demand, our peak demand during the evening time is 3 hours nowadays. So moving to 3 hours, 60 megawatt. And maybe the next slide is going to be about the poles. So replacing, we have modified our poles. We still have the default one is wooden poles. We have moved to a concrete pole, and concrete pole from 6.5 kilonewton. Now it's for 8 kilonewton. So it's a small reinforcement that we've got. These were our, actually it's existing substation, it's outdoor, and we are replacing that with GIS substations. So we have a contract which is going to start with implementation maybe in May of this year. It's replacing 10 of our major substations with GIS substation. So I don't know if someone can move around with the slide over there. And besides, we have one of the major issues. We are a tropical island. One of our major issues that we are having is vegetation management. People like to grow trees, and cyclones usually happen in November and December. And this is where the mango trees, the lychee trees are going to bear their fruit. So people don't like to cut their trees and so on because it's very near to the power grid. So what we are doing is that we have enforced it using the law, the regulation in Mauritius. So we will request people to do their own lopping, else it's going to be up to the utility. Whenever there is any maybe tree which is going to impact during climate, maybe cyclones and so on, we are going to cut down these trees for them, and we can even have the power to uproot these trees because 90% of falls during cyclones are due to these trees. So these are a few of the things that we have done. During cyclones as well, we have problems with infrastructure, with flooding, maybe roads flooding, road damage, or trees falling on the roads and so on. So for that, we have invested into distribution automation systems. So we are installing what we call load break switches, which can be controlled from these are for the poles. Load break switches, which can be controlled from the system operation, from our SCADA and from our DMS system. So this said, we are having around 100 of these MLBS being installed by the end of this year. So we are coming up as well with a new system control center. With one, we are going to have the SCADA and the ADMS as well. And I don't know if someone can help me because I do have a few slides on because we were lucky not to be hit by cyclone this year. This was during, I have some statistics of last year by Cyclone Bilal. We had winds of 217 kilometers per hour. So due to these things that we have been trying to implement, we have been able to restore the power supply within 2 days itself. And this year, these are damages caused by trees. So at times we say we cut trees on one side, but trees are so big that when they're even on the other side of the road, they can impact the network. So these are the amendments that we brought to the Electricity Act and Electricity Regulation, which allow us to cut down trees and so on. And this year, this is by the end of December, and not December, but February of this year, a cyclone Garance, which avoided Mauritius by a couple of kilometers, but it hit our Réunion island next to us, which is a French colony. So there, they're still what we are restoring power. So these are for distribution automation. Can we just move to further down, please? This is for, yes, next slide, please. So this is for Cyclone Garance, which hit Réunion Island in February. And we have winds of around 230 kilometers per hour. Practically like 50% of the whole network was down. Distribution, transmission, even generators was there, but they could not maybe export power to the grid. So this was coupled with floods. And we've seen that for the first 5 years. Every time we are having cyclone, we have flash flood, around 100 millimeters of rain within 1 hour. So the evacuation system is not able to cope with that. It's overwhelmed. So if you can move down to the next slide, please. This is what the towers, event towers down, okay, completely bended. So next slide is going to show you about this is all the landscaping that you've got there, similar to Mauritius. This is in Réunion Island. So we have large, maybe spans, mountainous regions, and so on. So conductors were down. So can you please, so next, so they use a drone, okay, the latest technology drone, to pull a messenger wire to the other side instead of making people do that and so on. And with that messenger wires, they put another wire, galvanized wire, then they could pull out the conductors. This help them, but we have our own people as well helping them over there to maybe restore power much faster. So next couple of slides, please. So next one. So then they had this opportunity because they're a French colony. They brought in materials from France. Okay, these all cable drums coming in, and maybe 3 or 4 of these jets were needed, okay, to bring up additional material because they were not prepared for that. So we, as the CB, we have maybe around 1,000 poles in spare. We kept for the cyclone stock, but there the network was so much damaged that they had this opportunity of bringing more maybe materials from elsewhere. Next slide, please. So these were, they used some remote areas which were still not connected. The damage was too much. They had to have mobile generators being sent, so around 20 of them. So they had that in stock, okay, to send them to different locations to provide power to people. Can you please next slide? And for the transmission line, okay, they had to get a helicopter, special helicopter, through an airplane to there, and this helped them maybe bring the tower up for a couple of locations. Can you show the next slide, please? No, before that. So these were the helicopters bringing down maybe transmission poles and transmission towers back into where they had to. So these are maybe heavy machinery, heavy logistic that they had to deploy, but still we are day 20 and restoration is not yet completed. Maybe around 5,000 customers still not connected. So that was a brief view of what we have had at CB Mauritius as well as our neighboring island, Réunion. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful, very good. So that is how I said you must present yourself. It's a very good thing and very good effort.
So we have also traveled to Mauritius and did a workshop, and it's very interesting, like you were showing. So Mauritius primarily generally uses wooden poles for electricity. 11 kV line size they are different. So very interesting to know that whether it gets damaged. And he suggested that no, in terms of the durability of wooden poles during time of cyclones have been tested that it doesn't. Wooden has a different issue altogether if you use too much.
No, it doesn't. I mean, most of the countries, even Europe also, you'll find many countries they are still using
all of North America is largely wooden.
Yeah, mostly. And these are very robust, but may not be so good for the cyclone-prone areas.
Right.
Maybe there, I think slowly we should go for the underground
Around
cables.
20% of our 20 kV network is primary distribution network, already undergrounded in main cities, and so after the
I think probably solution lies there.
it's costly.
Yeah. I know it's costly. That is how we can do it in phases.
So Jeff wanted to know about that Electricity Act vegetation cutting.
Yeah. Can you share that the content of that?
I can start asking of resolution. I can send you the full resolution.
Yeah.
Please.
So the last.
That's really good, because right now what we have is we have a separate Electricity Act and separate Environment Act, and we are more troubled by the Environment Act rather than our own Electricity Act. So it's good that the environmental provision have been made in the Electricity Act itself, particularly for the purpose of electrical installations. I think that's a good idea. That's a better idea.
And just to add to that, sir, it will also be helpful because when we implement vegetation management kind of solution, what Power-Grid is doing for India, so that will also be helpful if it's embedded in the electrical act. So
Absolutely.
solutions can also be
Of course, what they have done is they have tried to modify certain clause with respect to the linear projects. So if we have exclusively for electricity, probably we can have some more relaxations as well. It's not embedded. We had borrowed their provisions so far. Now we have been asked to amend our own act because they have totally done their yeah. So I mean we are talking slightly different here. instead of in that what we are doing is we are referring to the Telecom Act, and whatever is the provision in the Telecom Act we have to follow into it. So whether it is incorporated here or it is not, probably you will have to follow them because that becomes a law. In terms of environment, they have their own laws, and that law is generic law. So they try to fit electricity in some paragraph or the other and try to impose upon you the conditionalities. If you have specific to the power sector that okay, so and so transmission lines, only so much ROW, so much tree cutting permission can be given by such and such people, everything is codified here itself, at least we need not run to Ministry of MOEF for getting these permissions. I think wonderful, good ideas.
So, I think you are next, Mr. Vijayan.
So yeah, good evening, sir. I'm Vijayan from Hitachi Energy. So I will be touching upon the different aspect of resiliency of grid. So the cyber security or the cyber vulnerability, resiliency aspects. So we have spoken about the strengthening of the grid with respect to the different climate conditions, changing climate conditions, and also the environmental changes. So when we do that, we also talked about the digitalization, where the equipment has to be digitalized for getting the data for more analytics and also bringing the predictability of the the asset conditions, and also the the IT/OT convergence which is happening in the solutions we are implementing, be it the GIS, what Mr. Kale presented for the Tata Power, and also the IT/OT convergence in terms of forecasting and scheduling functions for the renewables. So all these aspects brings in the the criteria of having a cyber secure, or at least have the steps and mitigation plans. So I'm not going through the slides because again for the sake of time. So okay, I'll just talk about it. Thanks. So what we talk about in the mitigation techniques is that the defense in depth approach. So it's not just one layer of security that we protect, but it's the defense in approach starting from the physical access to the electronic perimeters on the device level, and the and also going into the depth of the electronic perimeter and the phishing of the different services and the ports of the different systems components which may be there. And accordingly, we have standards also, which are there applicable both in terms of the technical solutions like IEC 62443, or it can be IEEE 1686, and also process-based standards like ISO 27001, which are policies and procedures that needs to be adopted in terms of, so not just having as a product or a solution, but also how the policies and procedures within the organization also have to be deployed. And then in the last, the key takeaways like, how do we start with the existing infrastructure? Because we know electricity has been there for years now. So how do we make that cyber secure? So it starts from the assessment of the existing infrastructures and the systems, what is there, and then identifying the gaps and implementing them, and then keeping it sustainable. So it's not like a one-time approach. It needs to be sustainable, like maybe yearly audits, what is already being done for the electricity sector. Like we have the CERT in terms of transmission and distribution. They are already doing this every year audits. So that is there, and also the the security with respect to the technical and the procedure and policies of the organization, where it can be different aspects starting from training the personnel, responding to an incident, because whatever we implement it, we cannot say that the system is 100% secure. So there can be vulnerabilities, or there can be compromises. So how do we respond to that? How do we make our disaster recovery management, all those kind of things. So there are different aspects of cyber security to make the grid itself. While we make the grid strengthening in terms of the physical assets, how we can also make it the resilient to the cyber vulnerabilities. So that was my topic of
Only one thing, because normally we rely on these standards, cyber security standards or regulations. Of course, it is also evolving. Particularly the challenge that is coming is, if I am importing a particular equipment, how do I really ensure that that is cyber secure? If I am doing it within the country, at least I know everything.
Coming from the system integration side, so one thing I can tell you, like my friend was telling you about the IT, OT, cyber security. So basically, when it comes to the IT part of it, so we perform certain steps such as say hardening of the hardware. Okay, so say for example, servers, substation, everything. So we follow certain guidelines. We for the IT hardware, and we do proper hardening. And plus, there was this recent mandate from the government that certain equipments which are coming from outside India, they have to be certified from a tested lab. I think somewhere in Bangalore.
That is what we are working on.
But the problem here is,
I know there are problems. That is how that is how I asked that question.
the problem is there is no infra to perform such tests.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very difficult because
It becomes a catch-22 situations for people like us because we being the system integrators. So our job is to deliver the system in time to the customer. And if you start following all these steps, and if you have to follow the step and if it is structured, no problem. But if certain thing is missing, say for example, a set infrastructure is missing for performing certain certification or whatever. So if that is missing, so it causes more delay in the project, causes more delay in the delivery of the project. So more monetary losses. So that's a catch-22.
I know. I mean, this is a bigger pain points as of now.
And also, sir, as I was telling, so even the test what we do, it may be one-time test during at the time of the execution of the order, maybe percentage of sample what is mentioned in the guideline. But then that is also with respect to the product testing. So, but when we actually implement those products into the system, that is where the system level kind of audits, what we call, especially for the control centers we have it now. So those kind of audits and assessment and repeatedly doing that and then fixing those observations. So that becomes, so more than the product level testing, it is how the implementation and the system level assessment and the observations are addressed. That is important. And it's like I was talking about the 62443 standard, which addresses various layers. It also talks about the parts which are there with respect to the development life cycle, secure development life cycle, where the products are developed in a secured way, coded in a secured way, and tested also in a tested environment. And then the implementation, it also talks about the implementation, system integrator level, like 2-4, which is of the system integrator. So when we implement the product as a system integrator, what are the steps we need to follow? And also it talks about the asset owner. So if you see the standard perspective, so it covers like, the entire gambit and the stakeholders of the ecosystem, which is handling the products and the solutions which are deployed across different sectors. So there it is important to see the system level assessment rather than the product level. So that is another aspect that we need to look into when it comes to deploying secure systems.
It's a work in progress, I guess.
Exactly.
See, apart from cyber compliance, cybersecurity compliance, I mean, there's a thing called country of origin, right? This is also a very tricky area. Because if you speak to certain IT vendors or the network equipment vendors, maybe the cybersecurity vendors as well, because some of the equipments may be appliance-based. Right? So the mandate is they should not come from a certain country. But see, the way these IT manufacturers, they are based. Their business model works in such a way that to cater to a particular country, they will have their manufacturing facility in a certain area. Okay, and overnight or in a year or so, they cannot just remove that manufacturing facility from that particular country because it's already catering to that particular region for a long time. So what they normally do is, if unquoted, so what they normally do is they get it routed through some other country.
See, that is, see, this is only a interim arrangement that country of origin, that. These are only some kind of administrative arrangement that has been made. Ultimately, we will have to find some kind of a solution. As you rightly said, that it has to be definitive. What path we need to adopt, who is to test, to what extent it is to be tested, and this must be documented somewhere so that everybody knows what is supposed to be done.
That's the best part about working with somebody like, of course, to us, all the utilities or the transmission companies, they're all good, they're our customers. But working with somebody like Power is very, very useful, or it's very relatively easy. The reason being because everything is defined. Okay, if I am selling something, I know then and how I'm going to get that from you. So because everything is
चलिए money अलग part हो जाती है, cyber security का related issue नहीं है. चलिए.
So we have a 2-minute video from.
Just 2 minutes of one work that of course we did in Odisha. Of course I will not talk about it, but one specific piece of work that we were doing with NIP, Department of Economic Affairs, we specifically look at the transmission projects. Of course there are roads and railways as well, but I will just show you the video. It consists of two components. One is working on a cost-benefit analysis tool of building, integrating resilience in the assets from the planning stage itself, and B is looking at the standard bidding document and concessionary agreements and how to include resilience measures in that. For example, force majeure clauses, and so we have done a lot of things. But however, I will not talk more about the standard bidding and concessionary because we don't have that much time. I'll just quickly run through the video of the tool that we have prepared, and we have done it with PGCIL, and we have taken two assets, one RTM old Mundra project RTM power evacuation, and one in Srinagar project that we have taken of the PGCIL asset, RTM and TBCV. So Nishant, can you run the video please? Thank you.
Welcome to a walkthrough of the RCBA tool. The tool is designed to provide users undertake a resilience cost-benefit analysis while designing infrastructure projects. In the first screen, the user can choose the locational details of the project, and the tool picks up the pre-populated hazard data for the selected district from the inbuilt hazard catalog. Next, the user may choose from multiple sectors and select the asset type and the hazard affecting the asset. Based upon the hazard chosen, the model tool gives the user an option to choose the intensity and guidance on damage percentage based on previous events. The user may input project-related financial data and choose the resilience options to be added to it, and also input expected asset damageability based on hazard thresholds for various scenarios defined in the tool. This helps the user visualize the outlay in scenarios with and without resilience measures, and estimate the resilience dividend in form of financial indicators like internal rate of return, net present value, benefit cost ratio, etc. The tool is designed to aid government agencies, line ministries, private players and financiers in assessing the financial benefits of resilient infrastructure.
करना है
April में sir, we will be doing with April with DA, and of course we had discussed with CA Ashok Rajput sir team about this tool, and but with PGCL of course there are they have provided us the data. With Deepak Rao sir we have got the inputs from Ministry of Power. So now the whole idea is to also scale up and provide more infrastructure asset into this and more sort of information on it, because any tool is as good as the information that we put in. So we are going to scale it up. We will be trying to bring more integration.
Why don't you integrate it with the PM's Gati Shakti, because there all the data are there.
That's what, sir. They are going to write about. So PPAC, we are going to provide this tool. Public-private partnership appraisal committee. So to them we are going to.
अप्राइजल कमेटी के रूट पे मत ले जाओ यार. पावर सेक्टर को उस रूट पे ले गए ना, तो जो डेवलपमेंट पावर सेक्टर में हो रही है वो खत्म हो जाएगा. I mean, this is in a very plain words I have told that ministry कि the day you take it to this, probably हमारा जो आज के दिन पे हम एक महीने में अप्रूवल देते हैं, वो शायद आपका साल भर में अप्रूवल नहीं होगा. I mean, let's not complicate the system. System should be made further simpler.
So what do you suggest to whom we should sort of set this up?
Right now the planner as per the Electricity Act is the CTUIL. तो CTUIL को directly दे दो tool. ठीक है, ये आपको चाहिए तो. क्या है कि वहाँ से ही वो जो भी सिस्टम प्लान होता है, सिस्टम प्लानिंग के टाइम में ही वो देख लेगा कि हमको और क्या इसमें इनबिल्ट और करनी है. फिर वहाँ से हमारे पास अप्रूवलों के लिए आती है, CF में ही अप्रूवल होती है, अप्रूवल होने के बाद मिनिस्ट्री चली जाती है, मिनिस्ट्री से अप्रूव होकर खत्म होता है, छुट्टी हो जाता है. आप जो रूट कह रहे हो ना, उस रूट में बहुत कभी अप्रूव नहीं होगा तुम्हारा. You take the CTU route.
We work closely with them, so we'll get that.
So I have one follow-up. Now that CDRI is a 50-member organization of countries, how do you propose to get some level of standardization for people to say, okay, this is, like to his question, a certified, reasonably certified, acceptable platform?
These type of tools?
Yeah, these type.
So of course, it's a difficult question to answer. Like we are trying, and through we have our own program.
Rather, मैं इसमें थोड़ा सा different, मेरी अपनी views थोड़ा different रहती है. Sorry. We do talk about standardization for most of the things, but होता क्या है ना कि standardize कर देने के बाद आपकी क्या होती है कि उसमें innovations है वो kill हो जाती है. So you should not मतलब इसका इतना watertight compartment भी मत कर दो कि ताकि आपका innovations होना बंद हो जाए. आप एक गाइडलाइंस रखिए, गाइडलाइंस के हिसाब से चलते रहिए एंड लीव अ स्मॉल स्कोप ऑफ इट्स इम्प्रूवमेंट एज.
Of course, that's what we're trying. Like for example, when we did Odisha, sir, we found out the wind zone maps, and you know the story around it. So the idea is not to tell what exactly they have to do for the wind zone map. Idea is to institutionally sort of create a governance system where it's being done dynamically and real time. Like for example, under the Act, Electricity Act, electricity planning is mandated by certain agencies to do it regularly. Similarly, for wind zone map and similar type of hazard profiling, it has to be done dynamically, real time, which needs to be fed into standards, and standards then need to be done. So of course, we can't. So of course, sir, the idea is, of course, we can't be a standing body. That's something which CVRI cannot do. It's the national standard setting body, and of course the international IEC of the world that do it. And we can't do that job that they have to do. But idea is to also
करना भी नहीं चाहिए. आपका काम है नहीं.
वो हम नहीं हो पाएगा सर.
वो BIS के लिए छोड़ दो.
The word was not standardized. I think the question is an agreement across 50 countries on the framework itself that you're proposing.
Right.
You don't want Brazil to come and poke holes or somebody else to come and poke holes in it.
So we are going to like test, like for example, this tool we are going to take to Brazil as well. We are going to take to Chile. We are going to take to Vietnam and some of our member countries. We are going to scale it up. We are going to deploy this tool and learn from it more. So that's the idea.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. That will give her international learning.
Right, sir.
There's absolutely no issues on that.
Right, sir.
Local conditions could be different, but see, there is no harm in learning what, say for example, Mauritius is doing.
Operation, yes.
Yeah.
No, the word is not standard.
So of course, I understood Ravi sir. Of course, we are going to start our work in Chile, sir, now.
Okay.
So in Chile, we are going. What we did in Odisha, sir, we have scaled up, and we are going to do a national roadmap for building resilience, power sector resilience in Chile. Hazard profile बहुत different है. They have earthquakes, they don't have cyclones. They have landslides, they don't have that thing. And it's a very unique country in the sense of the transmission line and distribution network. It's a very linear country where load profile is very sort of skewed in the sense very few pockets are there.
चिली कर लो तो यहाँ केरला करके कर देना.
तो केरला का तो अलग इश्यू सर.
केरला भी तुम्हारा linear ही.
सर वो skewed नहीं है सर. Population हर जगह होती है सर. So Kerala has ROW issues. Rest everything is solved, sir.
So I think we are going to close up. Any last words and comments that you have? We'll close after that.
No, it's wonderful. I think I didn't come here with any specific agenda, but definitely good to interact with you all and good to know some of the international experiences as well. It's a learning phase for us, particularly in the distribution segment. And what I have seen, particularly in the last 6 to 7 years when I was handling all these affairs, and particularly disaster management was with me when I was there in ministry. So I know the pain points whenever a disaster happens and how do we really tackle these issues. It's definitely there. Each event had taught us some lesson, and that is the practice we started in ministry for last 6-7 years. That any event that is happening, what had been the learning, we codify it, and then that is circulated to as a best practices for all the areas which are disaster prone areas, so that at least we are more prepared in that aspect. And that is how we have seen that now even if some smaller disasters are happening or some smaller cyclone is coming, we are able to restore within 24 hours, 48 hours. I think recent one was in 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Even Dana, there was many circuits which were not affected.
Absolutely. And that is mainly because now everything is almost standardized. That if this is going to happen, this is the area which is going to affect it, what are the equipment that is supposed to be done. So all pre-preparations is done in advance. So the moment anything happens, and the team is also earmarked that, okay, if this is the area, you need to go inspect, start doing the job. Don't wait for any instruction, upper instructions to come from anywhere else, so that at least you are at absolutely.
I tell you, after that was a crisis for us. But after that, we took all the steps and we allowed us 180 crores to keep spares. And we used to earmark that as a spare, not to be used for long purposes. So we did learn a lot from there.
Absolutely. नहीं, हमने तो इतना तक किया है कि यदि उड़ीसा में साइक्लोन आ गई है, so we used to tap equipments from the neighboring states. Even एक बार तो ऐसा आ गया था कि I had to rope in IMA. I called all the manufacturer and then asked them कि कितना quickly तुम deliver कर सकते हो. लीव असाइड मैं तुमको कब ऑर्डर दूंगा क्या दूंगा, जो भी तुम्हारे पास पड़ा हुआ है इमीडिएटली डिस्पैच, विल सी हाउ यू आर गेटिंग कॉम्पनसेटेड. Yeah.
So everybody knows where to get what resources.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Got from Delhi, got from MSCDC, we got from Tata's, because it was in suburbs. It was not effective. 2005 was not impacting the southern part of the city. It was a cloud burst in the suburbs.
Right.
So we learned from there, and it's a document which is, I think, well worth referring.
Absolutely. इनफैक्ट इमीडिएटली वो ट्रिगर हो जाता है. अभी तो कैप्सेक से लेकर के डाउन द लाइन सब ट्रिगर हो जाता है, इमीडिएटली ट्रिगर हो जाता है. बट गुड, आई थिंक वी विल कीप लर्निंग एंड विल ट्राई टू.
Anand will take over from here.
Thank you very much for this wonderful, insightful discussion. So may I please request all the speakers, chairman and moderator, please join us on stage so that we can have a group photograph. Then we'll go for President ISGF to felicitate the speakers with mementos. Mr. Ghanshyam ji. Thank you. Mr. Abel. Mr. Gajanan Kale. Mr. Vikas. Mr. Ravi Seethapathy. Mr. R.R. Mehta. Mr. Ismael Adam. Mr. S.R. Vijayan. Mr. Amit Tripathi. Thank you. So, thank you, everyone.